Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My Main Street is back. We are so excited about the recent launch and intake for applications this round of the My Main Street program. The focus of today's information session will be the Community Activator stream. We will be recording and sharing this session through our website after we've wrapped today, and we will be hosting a second live session next Tuesday, March 5th at 10 a.m. I'd like to sincerely thank everyone for attending today's session and recognize that we are tuning in from a diverse range of locations and treaty lands. CUI's team acknowledges the location of our head office on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Our work happens across Turtle Island, which has traditionally been and is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. So we've been receiving a lot of questions and a lot of interest since our intake opened last week, February 22nd. Thank you if you've been reaching out. We appreciate your interest and are excited to help you through the process as much as possible. The intent of today's session is to provide a general overview of the Community Activator stream. This will include an outline of the steps involved in applying to the program, and will also review the scoring process and timelines. We encourage you to listen through the presentation, following which we will have an opportunity for questions and answers on any general questions. If you have a question that is really specific or unique to your organization, I encourage you to direct that to our email, which is placemaking@mymainstreet.ca. Presenting to you the team behind My Main Street. Very excited to have this very talented list of names, experienced individuals supporting the work in delivering the program. My name is Lindsay. I came from My Main Street 1.0. I helped to deliver the local business accelerator program. Complementary to that, we've got our communications manager, Sam, who's incredibly talented and put this beautiful presentation together that you're seeing today, as well as all of our other program materials. We have a talented group of individuals managing the business sustainability stream, the portfolio managers. So Aaliyah, Christopher, Christine, and Sho, who will be helping to answer some of your questions today. And our Community Activator lead, portfolio manager, Ramona Gallagher. So she's going to be presenting the bulk of our program overview. So CUI, the larger team, we undertake a lot of strategic, nationally coordinated research and advocacy focused on revitalizing main streets. This includes research and the development of tools that inform shared priorities and gaps that exist across Canada. CUI has an extensive network and strategic partner framework that develop tangible, evidence-formed, actionable policy recommendations, all really in an effort to support the value of our main streets, their connection to the health of the economy, social life, and vitality of our neighborhoods and cities. So the My Main Street program, this round of programming, I know that we've had a couple of different programs that have been delivered over the last couple of years, a few changes that you'll see this time around. So we've got a $15 million investment from the Government of Canada through the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario, FedDev Ontario, to spur local economic recovery. So My Main Street is delivered by the Canadian Urban Institute to help support the revitalization of neighborhoods across Southern Ontario. The program features two streams. The business sustainability stream, we'll be offering an info session on that next week. So if you're interested, please register for that. Today, we're focusing on the Community Activator, which will support up to $250,000 for local high-impact placemaking projects. So that can include events and festivals, community enhancements, streetscape improvements, all really designed to draw visitors and increase local vibrancy. So the term Main Street represents a commercial and community focal point of a neighborhood. They bring residents in, they draw people into shops and culture and local services and more. We've identified approximately 5,300 main streets across Southern Ontario that are qualifying for the My Main Street program. This is on the basis of employment, business and service density, and other sets of parameters. Eligibility of main streets for this program has been determined through a data framework that was actually created by the Canadian Urban Institute. So applicants can directly enter their organization's address into our Measuring Main Streets mapping tool to determine if they are located on an identified eligible main street. We will discuss this more as the presentation goes on, sort of what our tool is based on, how it was built, and how we're managing some more unique scenarios that have come up, folks that aren't identified on the map, but where future consideration can be applied to determine eligibility. All right, so I'm going to pass it over to Ramona, who will give you the overview of our program. Thanks, Ramona.
Thank you, Lindsay. So the Community Activator, what is it? So as Lindsay said before, any questions that you have with respect to the Community Activator, you can always direct them to placemaking@mymainstreet.ca. Is where we are going to be, that's going to be the central place for information gathering. Sorry, so the Community Activator stream, it's designed, it's through projects throughout Central Ontario, but its key designation is to draw visitors and increase local vibrancy. So the funding up to $250,000 is based on a reimbursable funding model. And organizations that have need can receive up to 25% of the total amount that they have been given for the project. And then they will have to provide us receipts for the reimbursement of anything that they have done in the project. And this becomes really important. So I want to look at the concept of placemaking. And what we are really looking for is high impact placemaking that seeks to revitalize neighborhoods and reimagine public spaces. And that includes main streets, downtown strips, and plazas. So we are currently taking applications. But a project that you are looking to support and send into this Activator program must take place between December 1st, 2023 and December 31st, 2024. Applications are open, as some of you already know, and they will close, this first intake session will close on March 31st, 2024. We are going to be having another information session available, and this session is being recorded. And if you require additional information, again, reach out to us by email is the easiest way to reach out to us. So when we look at what actually is placemaking, and this becomes really important for those of you that are thinking about projects and what would fit under the guise of this. The whole concept of placemaking is that it is about a specific place. And that's bound by some type of geography, by a street or a location. And so what we are trying to do is reimagine and reshape public spaces for their shared value and to create greater value in the community. So this can make a really meaningful difference in local communities. It's a way to draw people out and get them back into our main street and into the areas that we want them to be. It strengthens feelings of connection and inclusion. And it really does spur economic activity. And that's what we are really looking for. A project that will allow people to come from different communities, from your community, and that there is some type of an economic and social impact that can be derived from the placemaking project that you've identified. So when we look at how we define our placemaking activities, we've sort of come up with 3 category streams. Now, we totally understand that a project may go over all 3 streams, and that is okay. You don't need to be just in an event and activation, and it can't have any of the other streams in it. But we are looking for you to identify how does your project fit into these stream categories. So the first one is events and activations. And so these are community events of a short, limited, or repeating duration intended to draw visitors or create a new local offering. And so you're drawing people to a specific geographic area, looking at it as the hub of your community and fostering a sense of economic activity in that area. The second stream that we're going to be talking about has to deal with community enhancements. And these are very specific, and we call these above grade improvements. So again, a specific geographic area, and we're looking at ways to improve it through physical, visual appeal. And how do we draw people into that community and increase for the members of that community their sense of safety, security, connection, and community enjoyment of that particular space. The third category has to do with streetscape improvements. And these are projects that facilitate a focused, deliberate path to revitalizing or strengthening an area through intentional and creative placemaking. These could be also some of the things that you see on your street, the murals, the lighting, anything that will draw attention and attraction to creating this space. Now, one of the things that I'm also going to direct you to on the website, on the tab that is for the community activator program, if you scroll down, there will be a section that talks about examples of projects that we believe fit into the streams that we are looking at. And so I really do encourage you to go through there. As you go through that section, there'll be some examples. There will also be a link to projects that have been funded through the last program. And you can take a look at those and see how what it is that you are trying to do fits into that type of placemaking. If you have questions about whether your project fits into this, again, please reach out to us by email. So we're going to talk about who is eligible. The key criteria for eligibility, it must be someone from a community from within Southern Ontario. All right. But the representatives of the organizations who may apply for the community activator is very narrow and focused. So it can be a municipality, local or regional government, a business improvement area, an Indigenous governing body or development corporation, federally or provincially unincorporated or incorporated not-for-profits, and registered charities. Now, you may have other organizations that are working with you together. And so we are looking for, if you have other agencies or you want to do a group application, we're looking at adding on co-applicants or strategic partnerships as part of your application and organizations that might be part of that. What we are also ensuring is that in order for your project to be accepted, there must be a confirmation that you have all the required licenses and permits, and that can be from the city, the region, the location, and or from public health. And so that all of those guidelines are followed and that you can get them all in place. We are also looking at projects that are looking at defined geographic areas. And so funding cannot be used to support programming that goes across a number of geographic areas across municipal jurisdictions. The key is we are looking at ways for you to be able to identify for us how your program and the work that you will be doing, your project and the work you will be doing, will contribute to sustainable economic and social vibrancy in your community. And so key to what I had said about co-applicants and partners and all of that, we are also looking for how is it that you as a community are working together to be able to achieve this. And the final thing that we are really keen on and want you to identify in your project applications is how will your project support the inclusion, safety, and prosperity of equity deserving groups. And this is the part that we talk about is the social impact that this project is going to have in addition to the economic impact. When we talk about organizations who are ineligible, all right, one of the key driving is the fact that if you have received anything from the Toronto Main Street Initiatives funding, you would be ineligible for participating or having that project considered under this guideline, okay, and under this activation stream. But if you have received funding from other programs, be they federal, provincial, or municipal, and those programs allow you to stack funding, and you are going to include this project as part of other items that you, other grant programs or other programs that you have applied for, if stacking is available, what we are asking you to do, and it's one of the questions, is to identify where else you have applied for funding, what other funding you are receiving, and what is covered under that additional funding so that we are not duplicating. Again, remember, this is a reimbursement program, so we need to make sure that that is happening. Now, if a community has been a previous recipient of the community activator funding, they can apply, but we are looking at new and innovative activations as the key to being able to, in the scoring and being able to provide the funding to these organizations. So let's look at what are some eligible expenses, and I get asked this all the time. So when we talk about labor costs, we are talking about the people that you are hiring or the groups that you are hiring to be part of this project. It will not cover the costs of managers, management, staff that are currently existing in your organization. Even if you are taking them away to spend 25% of their time on this project, if they are currently on your staff, the labor is not included in this. Now, we get asked about the consultants and the contractors. Please understand, if you are entering into contractor relationships with people, and I say people are asking me about the artists, the buskers, and all of that, understand the same way that I talked about permits and licensing and regulations, that if you are contracting with an individual, okay, they must be operating as a business. They must have the proper insurance and licenses and all of that in place in order for them to do what it is that you want them to do. Communications, marketing, and promotion is covered under this, and any program costs related to equipment, materials, the evaluation process, okay, because we're really big on evaluating and measurement. The permits and approvals can also be included. Now, when we speak of the capital expenditures eligible capital expenditures in this program are limited to things that are above grade enhancements to streetscapes. So landscaping, murals, seating, temporary installations, lighting, anything like that is eligible under the program. So very, very important to look at very, very exhaustive list in terms of what is there. Now, when we get to the ineligible expenses, I sometimes feel like Vanna White when I'm doing this because there are so many of them. But the key to the ineligible expenses, anything that is what would be considered a large capital expenditure. So that's the purchasing of land or buildings, or vehicles, new construction or renovations of existing buildings, and associated depreciation and amortization is not eligible for this program. And I'm going to state some of the obvious ones as well. Payments to any member or officer of your board of directors, costs of individual memberships to professional bodies or organizations, partisan, political, or election-related activities are not included in this. But what I do want to highlight for you in terms of ineligible expenses, all right, the programs and the projects that you are going to be putting forward must be projects that you have the ability to, you know, we talk about ideation versus activation. We will not cover the costs of ideation unless that leads to an activation that can happen between the dates of December 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2024. So if you are looking at having a feasibility study done with the intent to do something in the future, it would not be covered. The second thing is that projects that only benefit private interest or only support an organization, those are not eligible under the program guidelines. Events and activities that do not abide by local and provincial public health guidelines are also not permitted. And funding that is incurred outside of the eligibility window. So we will not fund anything that you have a receipt prior to December 1st, 2023, and it will not fund anything after the December 31st, 2024 window. An exhaustive list. So how is it that you apply, and what is the process in order for you to submit a really successful application? The first is that you need to identify that the activation or the place or space that you are looking to focus your efforts on is on one of our identified main streets. And Samantha's going to actually pull up the tool that you can find through the website that will show you through the tab, the mapping tool tab. And what we are asking you to do is enter the address of where the activation will be taking place. Okay. And if that area is within our identified Main Street catchment area, you are going to see that it's highlighted. And at the top left there, you are going to get a statement that says this address is eligible. And you're also going to have the ability to download information that we have collected from a number of different sources that will provide you with some statistical and demographic information that you can use as part of your project planning. If you are not eligible, it will show up. And so if you feel that the area that you are in is a main street, please reach out to us, the placemaking at mymainstreet.ca. You're going to get tired of me saying that. And just provide us with some justification as to why you believe it should be included so that we can do a little bit more referencing. The second thing that we are going to ask you to do is to download the applicant guide. Within the applicant guide, you will find a lot of the information that we are speaking of today, and you will be able to use it as a reference. And within that will be the eligibility and ineligibility requirements. So what we are looking for is making sure that you have read all of that and have a very clear idea of what your project handles. The next thing we're going to ask you to do, there is a separate application form. It is a separate document, a fillable PDF that you must also complete as part of your submission package. Now, one thing I am going to say about the eligible expenses, because this is a program where it's a reimbursable program, I really need you all to understand the importance of what the dollar value you are placing on that expense line item. So if you have the ability to receive quotes or estimates that will back up the amount of the purchase or the dollar value that you are looking for, that will help strengthen your application as well, because we don't want to leave money on the table. You may have asked for $15,000 and only spent $5,000. That means there was $10,000 that was potentially left on the table that could have been used elsewhere. And this becomes really important. You are only reimbursed for what you are able to submit receipts for. Becomes very important. So when we talk about eligibility, it is the Main Street eligibility, it is the project eligibility, and project or organizational eligibility, and finally, it's the expense eligibility. So you fill all that out, you save the documents, you attach them, and you put them through the submission form. When you are in the submission form, when you hit that Apply Now button, you are going to be taken to our submission form, which is very much just a capture of demographic data about you and your organization and the project. The application form that you are going to attach into that document has way more information about how you perceive your project timeline. Everything about the project and what you are hoping to achieve is in that application form. And so that attachment becomes extremely important, as does the project budget that you are going to be providing. Now, one thing I'm going to say that when it talks about attachments, all right, where you have the ability, please do minimize the size of attachments. All right, so if you are going to be attaching pictures or something else for me, please make sure you have minimized them, because we are limited to 100 MB in terms of the size of a file. And I really like you all, but I don't want to have to be trying to minimize files just so that we can go through the process. So where you can, minimize a file size that you are attaching as best you can. So let's talk about application writing. How is it that you write an amazing application for this project? The very first thing that you need to identify, you need to be able to articulate the need for this project in your community. The next thing we need to identify, or you need to identify, I'm going to be reading, is what is the impact that this is going to have on the main street that you have chosen to focus your efforts on. We're going to ask you to state the economic and social impact of what it is that you are trying to do and what you hope to achieve. We're going to be looking at an implementation plan. You know, what is the implementation schedule that you are trying to achieve? Okay, and again, remember, the activation has to happen December 1st, 2023, December 31st, 2024. And the final and most important is we are asking you in advance, and we will be asking you in your final reporting to identify for us, how is it in the beginning, we're going to ask you, how are you going to measure and identify and analyze success? And at the end, we're going to ask you, what did you learn? How did you measure it? Did it meet your expectations? So that is a really key part of this whole program. Okay, just understanding what the impact was and how you were able to measure it and capture that information. So what happens in a strong application? Well, we are looking for objectives and deliverables that are clear and measurable, that the need for the project is evident, and you have identified the barriers that could be available to the people in your community that you are trying to overcome. And it could be the barriers in terms of what you've been doing or what the space looks like. We want to make sure that your outcomes match the My Main Street Community Activator objectives, and that they have a positive impact on your Main Street, both economically and socially. We are looking for project applications that have strong strategic partners and engaged community stakeholders, okay? And that you have the capacity to complete the project and reporting requirements within the timelines that we need to have everything submitted. Let's look at the scoring. Everybody always wants to know this, an application assessment. How is my application going to be assessed? We have three main criteria that we are looking at. The very first criteria is vision, second is capacity, and third is community need. When we look at the concept of vision, we are looking that your placemaking is clearly defined with a clear geographic area, well-conceived objectives, including those that are related to equity-seeking communities. All right. And does your placemaking include innovative or reimagined activations? So if you are submitting something that is a project that you had in the past, we really do need to see, we're not going to fund something that's the same old, we've done it for 100 years, we're going to do it for 100 more. That is not what we are looking for. We are looking for new and innovative and reimagined activations that are trying to boost your local main streets. The second assessment criteria that we talk about is capacity. And we are looking at you being able to show us that you have a strong team in place and a well thought out plan for successful implementation. Does your budget fully cover all of the items that you are going to need? And do you have a clearly articulated plan to measure success and the people in place to be able to do this for you? And the final is community need. And I think this is the one that when we talk about placemaking, this is the heart of placemaking. Identifying the need of the community and being able to fill those gaps. And does the proposed geographic area have clearly identified need? And this can be justified by historical patterns of retail spend, mobility, demographic representation, or the lack of something in your community that people are having to go outside of your community because you don't have the space, you don't have a community hub that people can go to, becomes extremely important. So let's talk about how we are distributing this funding, because I know everybody is keen about this. So we need to ensure as an organization that funding reaches across all of Southern Ontario, and that we have an effective engagement of underrepresented groups. So a minimum of 25% of the total funding in the Activator program, approximately $3.25 million, will be committed towards rural communities with populations less than 100,000. Additionally, up to 50% of the funding, or 6.5 million, will actually go to participants and organizations from traditionally underrepresented and equity-seeking groups, or where you are looking to meet the needs of those specific groups. So, what's the timeline for all of this wonderful stuff? So, applications, as I said before, are to be submitted through the portal that is available on the website, okay, in the Community Activator tab. The applications will be open until March 31st, 2024 at midnight, okay? Now, I know I shouldn't have to say this, but I will say this anyway, is that the submission of an application is not a guarantee of funding. All right, applications will be assessed on a rolling basis as they start coming in, and we will be notifying successful applicants between April 1st, 2024 through to May 30th, 2024 on the results of their application. Now, as you submit documents to us, okay, we are here to try to help the most number of organizations achieve their goals in the best way possible. So as applications are coming in, if we find that your application is missing something or it's incomplete, we will reach out to you to try to have you fix those items, attach the items that we are missing, so that we can continue with your application. We're not going to stop an application because you didn't attach the right document to the right tab. Okay, we are going to be working with you to find a way to make this application process easy and to work for you to have a successful application. So, I'm sure at this point your heads are spinning about all the things that you've just heard or have read about the program or have thought about the program. I'm just wondering if there are any questions that you might have. Now, as Lindsay had stated in the beginning, what we are looking for in today's session, we are looking for generic questions that will apply to the group as a whole, as opposed to asking very specific questions about your specific project or your specific community. So if your question is of that nature, again, placemaking at mymainstreet.ca is the place to go for a very specific, and I'm hoping today we can answer some of the generic or more broad questions that have come across. So I'm going to have Sam helping me here.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to be reading out some of the questions for Ramona so that she can focus on answering them. Ramona, I'm going to start with some of the questions that you did cover a bit in the presentation, but maybe you could just expand on a little bit further or reiterate for the group, and then we'll get into a few more details.
Yeah, no problem.
So the first question is really about the mapping tool. So if you could reiterate, how the main streets are selected and how the mapping tool impacts the My Main Street program. I think people would like a bit further details, and then also, the reiteration about if they believe that they're on a main street, what they can do.
Correct. So the mapping tool developed by CUI takes in a number of demographic and a sort of holistic pieces of information. Some of it comes from different resources, Stats Canada. It comes from our information that we had in My Main Street 1.0. And we are trying to build out, based on what has been identified as an ideal Main Street community, all of these demographic data points have come into place. Now, as with any system, guys, I'm going to tell you, honestly, there is no empirical system. All right. So especially when there are smaller communities, okay, and your main street is only 3 or 4 businesses, if we look at doing everything by a very broad tool in terms of defining it, it may not show up the first time around. So I'm going to be honest with you on this. All right. Any system is based on certain criteria, on data points. We just need to make sure that we understand your Main Street community and what it is that you view as your Main Street. So this becomes very important. Now, again, I have to tell you as well that some of you may not like the answer when we finally get to it, that, you know, your community may not be identified as a Main Street community by our definition. And I'm going to say very sincerely, it is our definition in the confines of this program, not in the confines of you as a Main Street or a community or anything else, but we have to limit the confines based on what are the requirements and mandates of this specific program. So if you don't see yourself on there, if you feel, please reach out. We will identify it, we will address it, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get the answer that you totally want. All right, just based on the way that the program is, the way that the program is set up. But we will definitely, every request, we will take it back, we will look at it. I'm hoping that answers that, Sam.
Yeah, thank you. And so if there's an organization that, let's say their office is not on the Main Street, but their event is on the Main Street, can you expand on that, please?
So what we are looking at is identifying where the place for the placemaking is. And so sometimes people are going like, you know, the address we might use originally is the address of your office, which may be in a totally, so again, we're looking at where exactly is this placemaking happening. And that's the address we are going to be using. If there's any sort of discrepancy between that, that's what we're going to kind of go with as well.
Okay, great. Another common one that I'm seeing, so people are asking if they can apply like as a group, maybe it's like multiple BIAs, or can it only apply the funds for one BIA? Can they apply for a group of businesses? Can you please expand on how that works?
So what we are looking at is we're looking at a geographic area and a specific area because it has to be associated with the concept of place. So when we talk about one of the criteria is it can't be a multi-jurisdictional across a municipality where there's like 25 different places. Okay, this is very specific to place. But when we speak specific to place, we have a number of community partners that are all associated with that same place. And so those would be the group of people that we would bring together. People have asked me, Ramona, can we each submit separate applications? Okay, what ends up happening in that type of a scenario is we end up having a number of different small events or small things for the same Main Street coming forward. Wouldn't it be ideal to create a larger event or a larger type of placemaking effort in that community with all of you coming together to sort of say, hey, we want to do this, but we want to do this. Let's figure out how we can do this all together in the concept of placemaking within the timeline that we've identified, December 1st to December 31st of 2023 to 2024. So we are looking for you where appropriate and where applicable to put in applications with co-applicants and strategic partners, okay? And to create, because the whole idea of placemaking, guys, is for everyone to come together and create a sense of place, not silo, this is my definition of this Main Street, this is my definition of this Main Street. We want to be able to bring this together as much as we can into that Main Street so that we are not inconsistent, that we are not choppy, that we are doing a placemaking activation for that particular area.
Great, thank you. Okay, so then the next common theme is about application review and approval time. So some people are asking if it's going on an ongoing basis, if they should apply early, will it be prioritized, and when they will find out.
So this isn't one of these programs that first in, last out, and that you get money first because somebody else waited an extra week. We will be working as we start getting applications in. We will be reviewing them. We will be working with the people. But our decision-making portal and our decision-making time, basically the time that you are notified whether you were successful or not, if you notice, those dates fall after the deadline of the application. So decision-making will happen post-submission. All right. So everyone can apply at any point in time as long as it's in by March 31st. And we will be working with people to try to get them approved as quickly as we can. We understand there are time restraints and all that, but you have to understand the decision-making will not happen. It will only happen between April 1st through to May the 30th. Okay. So that will always happen. I think that answers that question, Sam. I had my senior moment there and I forgot what the rest of the question was. Okay.
No, I think that was great. We'll watch the chat if there needs further clarification.
Yeah. I think the other thing I need to add to that is that there's a number of levels of approvals and stage making. Okay. The initial approval is just really based on eligibility. You know, is the organization eligible? Is the main street eligible? Is the project eligible? Are the expenses eligible? And then our next level of you know, allocation or review comes down to looking at some of those, you know, deserving communities, equity, making sure that we have like that it's been dispersed across the province and that it's not concentrated in certain areas. So there's also a number of different levels of approval and support and scoring that's going to go on as well.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're getting dozens of questions, so I'm gonna bring two together. I have two employment questions I'm gonna do, and then two budget questions. So the first employment question, the question basically says, the fund says it cannot be used to cover existing employee labor costs, but it does say you can have project-related labor. So what happens if an existing employee will be the one to take on the project?
If they are already full-time on your project, then that would be considered an in-kind donation. That is going to be the money that you as an organization are putting towards this project. So when you get into the budgeting template, that's where you would address that to say that we are contributing this person's salary or the executive director's salary or whoever else's, if they are currently a full-time employee. If the person is someone that you've had on contract before and they are no longer on contract and you're bringing them off and they are net new, then that is a net new directly related to this project. That would be someone that you could put through as a net new labor cost in this project.
Great. Okay, and then there are items like there's one festival, for example, that hires musicians and artists and production staff for the festival. Do these people count as project-related labor?
Yes, they do. But I'm always, I put my business hat on here, guys. Okay, my business consultant hat I can't take off. But please understand that if you are hiring these people, that you have to ensure that they have the proper insurance, licenses, and everything to do what it is that you are asking them to do. Okay. I always go to worst case scenario. That if you've hired one of these people and you haven't checked that they have any of the proper licenses, if something were to happen, okay, what would be the risk to you and your organization if you have not done all your proper due diligence in hiring what we would consider to be a contractor? You are not covered in a lot of cases for your insurance for people that you have contracted for their services. So I'm very serious about this one. If you are doing this, just please make sure that you know and have verified and checked all of this information on people that you are bringing on as contractors.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that as project-related labor fits fine in the budget. Ramona's advice is to check your checks and balances. Amazing. Okay, moving on, just because we have quite a few more coming in. Will the grant fund up to 100% of the proposed project, or could you expand about requirements for any kind of matching?
No, there is no matching required for this program at all, and it will fund up to 100% of the total project cost. But remember, one, this is based on reimbursement. For those that have need in the beginning, you can request 25% of the total amount that has been granted or approved. All right. You can also take advantage of stacking. So if you have the ability to receive funding from other sources, we just asked that in the budget, there's going to be a section that says, how are you funding this? Where are the other sources? What are the other projects or programs that you are receiving funding from, that be listed explicitly so that we know what is out there and how to make sure that you are going to be able to have. So remember, we talked about capacity. If you're telling me your project is worth $1 million and we're only funding up to 250 or 200,000, we need to understand where the rest of the funds are coming for to implement what it is that you are hoping to implement.
Yeah. So I was going to add to that. I will come back to it when my brain remembers.
No, that's okay. So the only project that is, the only funding that is ineligible is the Toronto Main Streets Initiative.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have received funding from that program for your project, you cannot apply for this because they are both part of my Main Street funding through FedDev Ontario.
Thank you. That was the one I forgot.
Yeah.
Okay. The next budgeting question, I've been asked a couple times. So I guess there's a few other programs that require an audit following receiving the funds, such as like Reconnect or Celebrate Ontario. I know those are like $1 million plus granting streams. So there's a few questions like, does this program require an official audit after the reporting, or will I be audited if I receive these funds?
No. So because it is a reimbursable expense program, you will be submitting to us the copies of the receipts for what you have paid for. And we will be reimbursing against that. So there is no other type of auditing or anything else that will be required as part of this program. So you don't have to set aside thousands of dollars to have an audit done of the program. That is not a requirement because it is based on reimbursable expenses with proof of expenses paid.
Okay, so to expand on that, I just got another question. What if a project starts late November but will end January 31st, 2025? Based on the expenses, what I'm hearing, or what I guess we can reiterate, is that between December 1st, 2023 and December 31st, 2024 are when the expenses have to be incurred. So if a project goes longer than that, Ramona, can you explain how that works?
So this is also one of the issues because it's not just when you incur the expenses, it's your ability to be able to report on the outcomes. So if your project is still going on, we cannot report on the outcomes. So this is the reason that we're kind of keeping to that timeline to make sure that we have the ability to get the outcome reporting done. Once December 31st is over, we will not accept whatever invoice has been done. So tip and trick in this one, we will also not forward pay. Like if you are paying for something and it's telling me that you are not going to receive that item until March of 2025, that is also something we will not pay for as well. We can't forward pay an expense. We can't do a prepaid expense. It has to be something that is incurred and used within that time frame. And the other caveat is just about the reporting and being able to provide information on the metrics and measurement within the time frame of the program.
Okay, great. Is there a limit of how many applications can be submitted for one community or one city?
No, there is not. But again, as I said before, from a community perspective, there's the concept of reasonableness. For you as an organization, I can pretty well guarantee that not, like if you submit 10 from one community, that not all of them are going to be funded just based on the dollar amount that we have, the number of applications that we receive. So then you are making it that someone in your community is not going to get funded and someone has put a lot of effort into the application. So where it is possible as a community, we really do encourage you to work together on an application and see if there's ways that you can build what it is that you're all trying to do for the exact same location into one larger application as opposed to a number of smaller applications.
Yeah, and I do believe that you covered this, but we will be also considering regional distribution of the funds across Southern Ontario.
Correct.
Okay, excellent. We had one question here. It was interesting to me about, they're saying like a lot of their businesses on the main street are use stairs, and they have an older, like a growing town. They would like to make community enhancements for like accessibility. Is that part of this project?
So remember when I told you all to go back and look at the examples through the tab and look at what some of the examples are? That is one of the examples, is how do we make a community more accessible for our members? Okay, for our community as a whole. That is one of the examples and things that we can do to a community. and to a specific place and location that meets within the guidelines of the community. So, and the program. So I do recommend for all of you, go back and look at that examples list and look at some of the former projects that have been funded under My Main Street, just to sort of help guide you as well.
Okay. Can a federally registered LLC apply when working via a nonprofit organization?
Okay, so the organization that applies for the community activator has to be the not-profit or the registered charity or the municipality or the BIA. That is the lead applicant. If they are working with a business to help them as part of what they're doing for the community, but what cannot happen is one individual business cannot benefit. And so this becomes really, really important that the for-profit business needs to be someone that you are contracting with for helping provide services to do something in your community. They cannot be the lead applicant in this or the lead organization. So literally the way that would work is that you have hired a company to be able to do some work for you, to be able to do this, and you are including it as part of your overall application for that community.
Okay. So let's see what else we got here. Okay, we're getting, sorry, some repeat questions. So I just want to make sure that we're addressing as many as we can.
I'm terrified because when I see the Q&As, there's like 63 of them. So my heart is just kind of going like, oh my God.
It's okay, we'll have a copy of all of them and we will work on addressing them. I know someone asked in the here if these Q&A will be uploaded. So this presentation will be uploaded to our website for you to rewatch. And we are going to take down every question and work on expanding our FAQs so that we address a lot of these questions. But again, any specific question about your community can be emailed to the email on the screen. Ramona, a few more. Just will people get a one-on-one consultation with a My Main Street representative at any point throughout the application process?
So the My Main Street person is me. I'm the only person handling the community activator side of the program. So again, I have no problem meeting with people discussing a specific issue. I do ask, send me the email first. Let me know what it is that you want to have a discussion about, and we can set aside a few minutes to go through your individual application. I need you to be able to tell me what you need from me in terms of information. If you're just going to ask me, you know, what kind of a project should I do? This is not the type of assistance we can give you. We can help you look at when you have defined what it is that you're doing, and we can talk it through and look at how to make it work. We cannot tell you what it is that you should be doing in your community. So again, the assistance that we have is helping you get the application completed and all of the necessary parts of it that need to be there. I cannot direct you in what you need to do for your community. Does that help, Sam?
Okay, I think, as I'm looking at them, I think we've gotten the most general ones that we can answer, because a lot more of them are very specific to people's areas that make it difficult to answer. So I think that's
and I think to that last question, Sam, that if you've submitted an application and we have viewed that there's something missing or we need more information, we will also reach out to you. So you don't need to keep calling me going like, you know, did you like my application? Did you like all of those things? If there's something missing, we will reach out to you and we'll keep you informed of where you are in the process of how we are looking at all of the applications. So you will never be left unknown as to where we are in the process.
Okay, great. Okay, we're going to end on one more question. Can you repeat the consideration you mentioned earlier in the presentation regarding inclusion of underrepresented and equity deserving individuals?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Repeat what you were talking about including are traditionally underrepresented groups and equity deserving groups.
So when we look at a community and placemaking, and we look at, are there groups or are there people moving into your community from different backgrounds, from different perspectives, from that may not have been included or felt welcomed into your community? So we look at the people who live, work, breathe in your area. How can we make everybody? So one of the best things that I ever heard about placemaking was, when you go to that area and you look around, you know, do you feel that everybody feels welcomed? And is it a representation of the people that live and work within your community? So when we look at the equity deserving groups, and thank you for this, Sam, we have identified some very specific groups: Francophone, women, the Indigenous, racialized groups, Black communities, newcomers, youth, and youth is 39 and under, for those of you that ever wanted to know. Persons living with disabilities, the unhoused, low income, trans or non-binary people, and or Two-Spirit, LGBTQ, A plus, all of those groups, and that is a very large list of groups. And so we just need to identify how your project is not, how it's going to be inclusive and not exclusive of these groups of people. And does, like, you know, when you look around, does everybody feel comfortable and included and part of it? And do they see themselves the same way we talk about DEI? Is the same way we kind of look at this lens as well. Has everybody been heard? Are they there? Are they represented? This is really, really important in terms of identifying this. And we did see a big shift in, you know, post-COVID, people moving. The demographics of our community are changing. And Veronica's analytics will give you, as part of your community, some of the things they talk about: changes. They talk about distribution based on age, race, color, language. They also talk about people's beliefs and attitudes and what is important to them, and have we included all of that in what it is that we are doing.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay, so we're almost at 3 o'clock, so I'm just going to launch a poll for everyone to fill out, please. We would very much appreciate as we close this session. Thank you all for attending. A reminder, if you have very specific questions, give Ramona a moment to, she's getting inundated, so please give her a moment to answer all your emails. And just a reminder that this My Main Street program is run, we're administered through the Canadian Urban Institute, and it's funded by FedDev Ontario, specifically for Southern Ontario. So we look forward to getting your feedback. We will take a look at all that, but for the last moment, we're just gonna let you finish this poll, and we will upload this session shortly. Thank you for attending.
Thanks, everyone.